You're not ugly. You just need to tidy yourself up a bit and marry me." Sarah Jenkins couldn't believe what she had just heard. There she was, sifting through scraps of food in a rubbish bin near Federation Square in Melbourne, when an impeccably dressed man approached her and made the most absurd proposal she had heard in her 32 years of life. It was then that he knelt right there amidst the bustling crowd, holding a small red box with a ring that shimmered under the late afternoon light. "I know you don't know me," the man said, ignoring the curious stares of passers-by who began to gather around him. "My name is Liam O'Connell, and I desperately need your help." Sarah stepped back a few paces, clutching the plastic bag where she kept her few belongings. Her brown hair was disheveled. Her torn and dirty clothes told the story of the last 6 months living on the streets, but her brown eyes still held a sparkle of intelligence that had caught Liam's attention the moment he saw her. "Are you mad?" she whispered, looking around and noticing that several people had stopped to witness the scene. "Get up from there. You're making a fool of yourself." "I'm not mad. I'm desperate," Liam replied, without moving from his position. "I need to get married before the end of this month, or I'll lose everything I've built in life." Sarah felt a mixture of anger and embarrassment. How dared this man appear out of nowhere and make such a humiliating proposal? She, who had been a respected literature lecturer at the University of Melbourne, was now being treated as someone who needed charity. "I don't need your pity," she said, trying to walk past him. "Find someone else for your games." But Liam quickly stood up and blocked her path, always maintaining a respectful distance. "It's not pity. It's a business, a contract. You help me, I help you. It's that simple. What kind of help could a man like you need from someone like me?" Sarah crossed her arms defiantly. "My grandfather left a clause in his will. To inherit the family business, I need to be married before I turn 35. I have exactly 23 days to find a wife, or everything will go to my cousin Victoria." Sarah studied his face. Liam had sharp features, piercing blue eyes, and appeared to be around 34. His suit was clearly expensive. The watch on his wrist looked like it cost more than she had earned in a year when she was still working. But there was something in his expression that didn't seem false. "And why me?" she asked, still distrustful. "There are thousands of women in Melbourne who would agree to marry you for your money." "Why don't you want my money?" Liam replied, putting the ring box back in his jacket pocket. "I've seen you here in the square several times in recent weeks. Always polite to everyone, always grateful. Even when people treat you badly, you have dignity, and that's rare." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. It had been so long since anyone had spoken of her with respect that she had almost forgotten how it felt. "You don't know anything about me," she murmured. "I know you weren't always like this," Liam said, gesturing towards her clothes. "I know something happened in your life that brought you here, and I know you're not here by choice." Tears began to form in Sarah's eyes, but she held them back fiercely. She wasn't going to cry in front of a stranger. "Even if I wanted to help you, what you're proposing is crazy. Marriage isn't a game. It would only be on paper," Liam explained. "A business arrangement. You marry me, help me secure the inheritance, and after a few months, we get a divorce. In return, I'll give you an amount that will allow you to restart your life." Sarah looked around the square. Slowly, people lost interest and continued on their way. The sun was setting, and soon she would have to find a safe place to spend another night. 6 months on the streets had been enough to shatter any romanticism she might have had about life. "How much?" she asked, surprising herself. $100,000, Australian dollars. Sarah felt her legs weaken. It was enough money to completely start over, perhaps even leave Melbourne and start a new life elsewhere. And what exactly would I need to do? Live in my house, appear at some social events with me, meet my family, convince my grandfather that we are a real couple. For how long? 6 months maximum. After that, we'll claim incompatibility and separate. Sarah was silent for a few minutes, processing the proposal. It was risky, but what alternative did she really have? Continue sleeping on park benches, searching for food in rubbish bins, fleeing dangerous people in the early hours of the morning. "I have conditions," she finally said. "Which ones?" "No physical intimacy, separate rooms, and when this is over, you help me with something I need to resolve." "What kind of thing?" Sarah hesitated. Could she trust this man? She had trusted people before, and it had gone badly, very badly. "I need to clear my name. I was unfairly accused of something I didn't do, and it destroyed my career and my life." Liam observed her intently. There was deep pain in her eyes, a wound that had not yet healed. "I accept your conditions," he said. "When do you want to start?" "Not now," Sarah replied quickly. "I need time to think." "How much time?" 2 days. Liam took a card from his pocket and handed it to her. "This is my home address. If you decide to accept, present yourself there on Thursday at 7 p.m. If you don't show up, I'll understand that you don't want to do it. Sarah took the card. The paper was thick, expensive, with embossed gold letters. The address was in Turak, one of the city's most exclusive areas. "What if I steal something from your house?" she asked, testing him. "Then I will have chosen the wrong person," Liam replied with a half smile. "But I don't think you will." He turned to leave but stopped and looked back. "Sarah, that's your name, isn't it?" She nodded, surprised that he knew. "Regardless of your decision about my proposal, there's a shelter 2 blocks from here that serves dinner until 8 p.m. The food is good, and the people are decent." With that, Liam walked away, leaving Sarah alone with the card in her hand and her head full of confusing thoughts. That night, lying on a bench in Federation Square, using her bag as a pillow, Sarah couldn't sleep. Liam's proposal echoed in her mind. It was an opportunity to get out of this terrible situation, but it also seemed too good to be true. How many times in life does someone appear out of nowhere offering a magical solution? She knew fairy tales well. She had taught children's literature for years and knew that in real life, things didn't work like in books. There was always a price to pay, always a hidden trap. But $100,000, Australian dollars, was enough money to properly investigate what had happened at the university, to hire a competent lawyer, to have the resources to fight the lies that destroyed her career, to prove that she had never committed plagiarism. The cold of the early morning made her shrink further into her worn coat. In 2 days, she would be making a decision that could completely change the course of her life. On Thursday at 7 p.m. sharp, Sarah stood in front of the gate of Liam's mansion. She had spent the previous 2 days obsessively thinking about the proposal, weighing the pros and cons until her head ached. The house was even more imposing than she had imagined. 3 floors, an immaculate garden, an electric gate with an intercom. It was the kind of place she never imagined she would set foot in. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please remember to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. That helps those of us just starting out a lot. Continuing, she pressed the intercom button with a trembling hand. "Good evening," a feminine voice said from the other side. "Good evening, I'm Sarah. Liam invited me to come today. One moment, please." A few seconds later, the gate opened automatically. Sarah walked through the garden towards the front door, feeling completely out of place. Her clean clothes, she had managed to bathe at the shelter, Liam mentioned, were still old and worn. The door opened even before she rang the bell. A middle-aged woman, well-dressed and with a serious expression, greeted her. "Good evening. I'm Margaret, the O'Connell family's housekeeper. Mr. Liam is waiting for you in the living room." Sarah followed Margaret through an entrance hall that seemed larger than any apartment she had lived in. Expensive paintings decorated the walls, and a crystal chandelier hung from the high ceiling. Liam was sitting in a leather armchair reading some papers. When he saw her enter, he immediately stood up. "Sarah, I'm glad you came." "I said I would," she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Margaret, could you leave us alone? Please." The housekeeper nodded and withdrew, but not before giving Sarah an appraising look. "Sit down," Liam said, gesturing towards the sofa. "Do you want anything? Water? Coffee? Tea?" "I'm fine, thank you." Sarah sat on the edge of the sofa with her back straight and her hands clasped in her lap. Liam returned to his armchair. "I imagine you've thought a lot about my proposal." "I have, and I have some more questions." "Of course, you can ask anything you want. Does your family know that the marriage will be fake?" "No, and they can't know. My grandfather is very traditional, and if he discovers it's a farce, he won't just disinherit me. He might even sue me for fraud. And your friends, your employees, they'll think it was a whirlwind romance." "It happens. People will gossip for a few weeks and then forget about it. And about me, don't you want to know who I really am before bringing me into your house?" Liam leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I know you were a university lecturer. I know something happened that made you lose your job. I know you don't have family here in Melbourne, because otherwise you wouldn't be living on the street. And I know you are a person of integrity, even in a desperate situation." "How do you know all that?" "I observed you. I spoke with some people who work in the Federation Square area. I didn't hire a private detective or anything that invasive, if that's what you're thinking." Sarah was impressed. He had really taken the trouble to minimally investigate her. "And if I accept and then change my mind halfway through the process, then we talk and find a solution. I don't want anyone to feel trapped in this agreement. And the money? When would I receive it?" "Half now, half when we divorce." Sarah took a deep breath. It was a fair proposal, considering the circumstances. "I accept," she finally said. Liam smiled for the first time since they met. "Excellent. We'll need to get married as quickly as possible. I thought about having a civil ceremony on Monday, if you agree. So fast, the longer we wait, the greater the risk that my grandfather will start asking questions. He's already suspicious because he's never seen me with a serious girlfriend. I understand. And where would I stay until the ceremony? Here, if you like, or I can pay for a hotel. Sarah looked around the luxurious living room. The prospect of sleeping in a real bed for the first time in months was tempting, but it also made her nervous. I think a hotel is better, at least until we're officially married. No problem, Margaret can take you to a good place. Liam got up and went to a desk in the corner of the room. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. Here's the first half of the payment, he said, handing the envelope to her. $50,000, Australian dollars. Sarah took the envelope with trembling hands. She had never had so much money in her life. It was surreal. Thank you, she whispered. There's one more thing we need to talk about, Liam said, sitting back down. Tomorrow morning we'll need to buy some clothes for you, for social events, and for meeting my family. Sarah looked at her own clothes and blushed. Of course, she would need an appropriate wardrobe to play the role of a rich businessman's wife. I'll pay, Liam added quickly, noticing her discomfort. It's part of the agreement. All right, and we'll also need to talk about our story, how we met, how long we've been together, that kind of thing. We need to be aligned for when people ask, have you thought of any version? Some ideas. How about we say we met in a bookstore? You were buying a classic literature book. We started talking about Australian writers, and it was love at first sight. Sarah almost smiled. It was a plausible story and close to the truth about who she really was. It could work. Excellent. Margaret will take you to the hotel now. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'll pick you up, and we'll go shopping. They stood up at the same time. For a moment, they stood facing each other, not quite knowing how to say goodbye. They were no longer strangers, but they weren't intimate either. Sarah, Liam said, I know this is strange and a bit crazy, but thank you for agreeing to help me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, she replied. Margaret appeared at the door as if she had been waiting for the right moment. I'm ready to take Miss Sarah to the hotel, she announced. In the car, on the way to the hotel, Sarah looked out the window at Melbourne's illuminated streets. 24 hours ago, she was sleeping on a bench in Federation Square. Now she was in the leather seat of an expensive car with $50,000, Australian dollars in a new bag that Liam had insisted on buying for her. Life could change very quickly. She knew that better than anyone. The hotel Margaret took her to was discreet, but elegant. The room had a king-size bed, a private bathroom with a tub, and a partial view of the city skyline. Sarah stood in the middle of the room for a few minutes, just looking around. Then she went to the bathroom, turned on the tap for the tub, and let the tears finally come out. Tears of relief, gratitude, fear, and hope. All the feelings she had suppressed during the last few months surfaced at once. She stayed in the tub for over an hour, letting the warm water relax muscles that had been tense for a long time. When she finally got out, she looked in the mirror and saw a woman she didn't fully recognize. Her hair was still damaged and disheveled. Her skin was dry and marked by the sun and cold, but there was something different in her eyes, a spark of hope she hadn't seen in a long time. The next morning, Liam appeared promptly at 9 a.m. Sarah was waiting in the hotel lobby, wearing the same clothes as the day before, but at least clean and ironed. Good morning, he greeted her. Slept well? Better than in months, she replied honestly. In the car on the way to the shopping center, Liam explained the plan for the day. We're going to Chadstone Shopping Center first. There are several good shops there where we can find everything you need. Afterwards, we'll go to a hair salon that my secretary recommended. I don't want anything too extravagant, Sarah said. I don't feel comfortable with excesses. I understand. We'll take it easy, and you choose what makes you feel good. The first stop was at a designer women's clothing store. Sarah felt intimidated by the prices and the attention of the sales assistants, but Liam was patient and encouraged her to try on several options. This dress looks beautiful on you, he commented when she came out of the fitting room, wearing a navy blue midi dress. Sarah looked in the mirror and had to agree. The quality fabric and perfect cut completely transformed her appearance. It's very expensive, she murmured, looking at the tag. Don't worry about that. Choose what you like. They spent 3 hours at the shopping center buying dresses, blouses, trousers, shoes, accessories, and even appropriate lingerie. Liam always maintained a respectful posture, offering opinions when she asked for them, but leaving the final decisions in her hands. At the hair salon, the transformation was even more dramatic. The stylist cut and hydrated her hair, revealing a brilliant brown color she had forgotten she had. The manicurist and pedicurist made her nails look completely different, and the subtle makeup enhanced her features in a way she hadn't seen in years. When she looked in the mirror at the end of the day, Sarah could barely recognize her own reflection. The woman looking back at her was elegant, sophisticated, beautiful. It was who she used to be before everything fell apart. "Stunning," Liam said when she came out of the salon. "You look beautiful, Sarah." Sarah blushed. It had been a long time since anyone had called her beautiful. "Thank you, and thank you for all this." She gestured towards the shopping bags in the car. "It's the least I can do. After all, you're helping me with a very serious problem." On the way back to the hotel, Liam casually mentioned, "Tomorrow night we'll have dinner at my grandfather's house. He wants to meet you." Sarah felt her stomach churn. It wasn't supposed to be gradual. "Unfortunately, we don't have much time. He called me this morning saying he wants to meet my fiancée as soon as possible. And if he doesn't like me, he will. You're intelligent, educated, you have an interesting story. You just need to relax and be yourself. And if he finds out it's all a lie?" Liam stopped the car at the traffic light and looked at her. "He won't find out unless you tell him." "Of course, I won't tell him. Then everything's fine. My grandfather is a straightforward man despite all the money. He's more impressed by character than social status." At the hotel, Sarah went up to her room carrying all the shopping bags. She carefully hung the new clothes in the wardrobe and arranged the shoes in rows. It was like putting together a wardrobe for a character she was going to play, because that's what she was doing, wasn't she? Playing a role, the character of the wealthy businessman's fiancée, a woman who had no dark secrets in her past, who hadn't lost everything that mattered, who hadn't spent months living on the streets. She lay down on the comfortable bed and closed her eyes, trying to mentally prepare for what was to come. Dinner at Liam's grandfather's house was scheduled for 7:30 p.m. the next day. Sarah spent the whole day nervous, changing clothes several times until she settled on the navy blue dress Liam had praised in the store. When he arrived to pick her up, he was visibly nervous too. "My grandfather is a bit intense," he explained in the car. "He likes to ask direct questions and observes everything very carefully." "What kind of questions?" "About your family, your education, your plans for the future, that kind of thing." "And what do I say about my family?" "The truth, if possible. It's always easier to remember the truth than lies." Sarah took a deep breath. The truth about her family was complicated but not impossible to explain. Liam's grandfather's house was even larger and more imposing than his grandson's. It was in Turak and had a spectacular view of the city. A butler greeted them at the entrance and led them to a formal dining room with a table that could easily seat 12 people. Robert O'Connell was a 73-year-old man with well-cut white hair, piercing blue eyes like his grandson's, and a posture that radiated authority even when seated. He wore an impeccable dark suit and a maroon tie. "Grandfather, this is Sarah," Liam said, his arm lightly on her back. "Sarah," the grandfather repeated, standing up and walking towards them. "A pleasure to meet you, my dear. Liam has spoken highly of you." "The pleasure is mine, Mr. O'Connell," Sarah replied, accepting his extended hand. "Please, call me Robert. Excessive formality makes me uncomfortable." During dinner, served by two silent staff, Robert bombarded Sarah with questions. Where was she born? Where had she studied? What books did she like to read? What were her professional plans? "Liam told me you were a university lecturer," Robert commented while cutting his salmon. "It's a very noble profession. Why did you stop teaching?" Sarah felt her throat dry. It was the question she feared most. "I had some, problems in my last job," she replied carefully. "I decided to take some time to rethink my career." "What kind of problems?" "Grandfather," Liam intervened. "You don't need to interrogate Sarah as if she were giving testimony." "It's all right," Sarah said, lightly touching Liam's arm in a gesture that seemed natural. "I don't mind talking about it." She looked directly into Robert's eyes. "I was unfairly accused of academic plagiarism. Someone falsified evidence to harm me, and I couldn't prove my innocence in time to save my career." "That's terrible," Robert said, and for the first time that night, his expression softened. "Injustice is one of the things that most angers me in this world. That's why I'm focused on clearing my name and proving the truth," Sarah continued, "even if it takes years. And Liam is helping you with that?" Sarah looked at Liam, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "He's offering me support," she said, "both emotional and practical." "Excellent. That's how it should be. A couple should be present in difficult times." The rest of the dinner passed more calmly. Robert told stories about building the family business. Liam contributed some funny anecdotes, and Sarah gradually managed to relax. "Sarah," Robert said when they were having coffee at the end of the meal, You seem like a very principled young woman. Liam is to be congratulated on his choice. Thank you, Robert. And when do you plan to get married? Sarah almost choked on her coffee. Well, Liam began. Soon, Sarah interrupted, surprising both of them. We don't see any reason to wait long when we know it's what we want. Robert smiled broadly. Excellent. Young people who know what they want and don't beat around the bush. I like that. In the car, on the way back to the hotel, Liam was clearly relieved. You performed perfectly, he said. My grandfather really liked you. How do you know? By the way he spoke, and he never praises the women I introduce him to. Never. You introduce him to many women? Some, over the years, but he always found some flaw. He'd say they were too materialistic or too frivolous or too fake. And I'm none of that? Liam stopped at the traffic light and looked at her intently. You are the most genuine person I've met in a long time. Sarah felt something strange stir in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. Liam, she said. Yes? Why did you really choose me? And don't tell me it was just because I didn't want your money. He was silent for a moment, thinking about the answer. Because when I saw you in that square for the first time in years, I felt I had found someone real, someone who understood what it was like to lose everything and have to rebuild life from scratch. You've lost everything in a certain way, but that's a conversation for another day. Sarah wanted to insist, but something in his expression made her change her mind. Everyone had a right to their secrets. On Monday morning, they were married at the registry office. It was a simple ceremony, with only the mandatory witnesses. Sarah wore a discreet white dress they had bought specifically for the occasion, and Liam was impeccable in a dark grey suit. When the official asked if they accepted each other as husband and wife, both replied yes, in firm voices, but avoided looking each other in the eye. The kiss that sealed the union was quick and chaste, barely a brush of lips. Leaving the registry office as husband and wife, Sarah felt strange. She was officially Mrs. Sarah O'Connell, now, at least temporarily. How do you feel? Liam asked when they got into the car. Strange, she replied honestly. And you? Relieved, at least part of the problem is solved. What's the next step? You move home today. Tomorrow we'll announce our marriage to the rest of the family and my friends. What will that be like? A lunch at my house. Nothing too formal. My cousin Victoria will be there. Some cousins, my secretary, some business partners. The cousin who would lose the inheritance if you didn't get married? The very same. Be prepared, because she won't be happy with the news. That afternoon, Sarah definitively moved into Liam's mansion. Margaret, the housekeeper, received her cordially but reservedly, showing her the room that would be hers for the next few months. It was a spacious suite on the second floor, with a private bathroom, walk-in wardrobe, and a small sitting area with armchairs and a table. The windows overlooked the back garden, and the decor was elegant but not ostentatious. Mr. Liam's room is down the hall, Margaret explained. If you need anything during the night, you can call me. My room is on the first floor. Thank you, Margaret. And I apologize if all this is a bit confusing. I know the situation is unusual. The housekeeper studied her for a moment. It's not my place to judge Mr. Liam's decisions, she finally said, but I can say he seems happier since he met you. Really? Yes. He was very stressed lately, worried about that inheritance matter. Now he's calmer. Sarah arranged her new clothes in the wardrobe, organized her few personal items, and sat in the armchair by the window. From there, she could see Liam in the pool area, talking on the phone and gesturing quite a bit. He seemed to be discussing some professional matter. It was strange to observe him in his own home, in his natural environment. He seemed different there, more relaxed and confident. In the square, when he approached her, there had been a certain desperation in his demeanor. Now, walking through the garden of his mansion, he was clearly a successful man in control of his life, or so it seemed from the outside. During dinner, which they shared in the smaller, more intimate dining room of the house, Liam explained some details about the domestic routine. Breakfast is served at 7:30 a.m. Margaret always prepares varied options. Lunch is at 12:30 p.m. and dinner at 8 p.m. But if you want to eat at other times, just let me know. And on weekends, I usually work Saturday mornings, but afternoons and Sundays I'm free. Sometimes I have social commitments, company events, that kind of thing. And now that we're married, I'll have to accompany you to those events? To some, yes, but nothing too frequent. They ate in relative silence for a few minutes, still getting used to their new dynamic. They were no longer strangers, but they weren't exactly intimate. Can I ask a question? Sarah finally said. Of course. Why did your grandfather put that condition in the will, about having to get married? Liam sighed and put his fork down on the plate. My grandfather is a very traditional man. He married at 22 and was with my grandmother until she passed away, 48 years later. For him, marriage and family are the foundation of a stable and successful life. And your parents? They passed away when I was 15. A car accident. My grandfather raised me ever since. I'm so sorry. Thank you. It was a long time ago, but it's still hard to talk about. Sarah understood perfectly. She too had lost important people and knew that some wounds never fully healed. That's why you never married before, because you lost your parents young and you're afraid of getting attached to people. Liam looked at her in surprise. That's a very insightful observation. I used to be a psychologist before I became a literature lecturer. I did 2 degrees. I didn't know that. Why did you change fields? Because I found I liked analyzing fictional characters more than real people. Characters don't lie about who they are, but real people lie all the time, to others and to themselves. Liam looked thoughtful. And have you ever lied to yourself? Sarah hesitated. It was a deeper question than it seemed. I think we all lie to ourselves from time to time. It's a way to survive. What do you lie to yourself about? About being fine alone? About not needing anyone? About having completely moved past what happened to me at university? It was more honesty than she had intended to share, but something in the way Liam listened made her feel safe to open up. And me, what do you think I lie to myself about? Sarah observed him carefully, his blue eyes, his upright but slightly tense posture, the way his hands moved restlessly when he was thinking. About being satisfied with your life, about professional success being enough to make you happy, about not feeling lonely in this house that's too big for one person. It was Liam's turn to seem surprised. How do you know I feel lonely? By the way, you look at things when you think no one is paying attention. It's the same look I had when I still lived alone in my apartment before everything fell apart. They were silent for a few minutes, absorbing the unexpected revelations they had shared. Sarah, Liam said finally, can I ask a personal question? You can. What really happened at the university? Who was it that harmed you, and why? Sarah felt her chest tighten. It was a subject she avoided thinking about, but it never completely left her mind. There was an older professor in the department, Dr. Richard Thorne. He was interested in me, but I always made it clear I wasn't. When I started to be considered for a permanent position that he also wanted for a protege of his, he decided to sabotage me. How? He falsified documents, making it seem like I had copied parts of my doctoral thesis from other authors. He planted evidence on my computer, bribed people to testify against me. When the investigation began, you couldn't prove your innocence, and the university didn't question the evidence. They questioned it, but Dr. Thorne was very respected and influential. He had friends in important positions. I was just a young lecturer, without many political connections. What happened in the end? I was fired. My name was publicly tarnished. Other universities didn't want to hire me. I lost my apartment because I couldn't pay the rent anymore. My friends distanced themselves because they didn't know whether to believe me or the accusations. Sarah felt tears begin to form, but she held them back. In a few months, I lost everything: career, home, friends, reputation. When the money ran out, I ended up on the streets. And you never tried to fight the accusations? I tried. I hired a lawyer with the little money I had, but we couldn't get enough evidence to reverse the situation. The lawyer told me it would be better to accept a settlement and move on, maybe change cities and start a new career. But you didn't accept it, no, because accepting would mean admitting I did something wrong, and I didn't. Liam got up and went to the window, standing with his back to her for a few moments. Sarah, he said without turning around, if you could have a second chance to prove your innocence, would you take it? Of course, but I don't know how that would be possible now. Liam turned to look at her. What if I told you I know people who could help? Private investigators, specialized lawyers, people with resources to uncover the truth. Sarah felt her heart race. Why would you do that? Our agreement didn't include you spending money trying to clear my name. Because it's the right thing to do. And why? Because I like you, Sarah, as a person, as a friend, and friends help each other. She remained silent, processing what he had said. It was a generous offer, but also dangerous. It meant opening herself up again, reliving all the pain and humiliation of the past. I need to think about it, she finally said. Of course, no rush. The offer will still stand. The next morning, Sarah woke up in her new bed, in her new room, in her new temporary life. For the first time in months, she had slept an entire night without waking up startled. The feeling of security was almost strange after so long. She went down for breakfast and found Liam already sitting at the table reading the newspaper and drinking coffee. He was wearing a gray suit and seemed ready for another day of work. "Good morning," she greeted him, sitting in the opposite chair. "Good morning. Slept well?" "Very well, thank you." Margaret appeared with a tray of fresh fruit, pastries, cheeses, and juices. "Mrs. O'Connell," the housekeeper said, "from today on, you can tell me your preferences for meals. I like to know what the people of the house like to eat." "I'm not very fussy," Sarah replied. "I eat practically everything." "Do you have any allergies? Any dietary restrictions?" "No, none." After Margaret withdrew, Liam explained the day's program. "Lunch with my family is at 12:30 p.m. It will be here at home. My secretary is taking care of all the preparations. How many people will come?" 8, counting you and me, my cousin Victoria, and her husband, 2 cousins from my mother's side, my secretary Gabrielle, and 2 business partners. "And how are we going to explain our sudden marriage? As planned, that it was love at first sight, and we didn't want to wait. Will your family buy that explanation?" "Victoria will certainly question it. She's very distrustful by nature, but the others will probably accept it without many questions." Liam finished his coffee and stood up. "I need to go to work now, but I'll be back before lunch. If you need anything, Margaret knows where to find me." After he left, Sarah found herself alone in the mansion for the first time. It was a strange feeling to be in such a large and luxurious place. She decided to explore the house a bit. The library on the second floor impressed her particularly. The walls were covered with floor-to-ceiling shelves, packed with books of all kinds: world literature, classics, business books, biographies, even some contemporary novels. It was clearly the library of someone who actually read, not just for decoration. She took a copy of Cloud Street from the shelf and sat in an armchair by the window. It had been a long time since she had read for pure pleasure, without the pressure of preparing classes or academic research. Margaret found her there a few hours later. "Mrs. O'Connell, excuse the interruption, but I need to confirm some details about lunch." "Of course. Tell me, does Madam want me to prepare any special dish? Or can I stick to the menu I've already planned?" "What you planned is perfect. Don't worry about me." Margaret hesitated for a moment before speaking. "May I make a personal observation?" "Of course. It's good to see Mr. Liam with someone who appreciates books. His ex-girlfriend never entered the library. She used to say reading gave her a headache. He had a serious girlfriend for almost 2 years, Felicity. A pretty girl, but very, how should I put it, materialistic." Sarah felt curious but didn't want to seem intrusive by asking too many questions. What happened between them? She broke up with him when she discovered he would have to marry before 35 to receive the inheritance. She said she didn't want pressure to get married. It was ironic, Sarah thought. The ex-girlfriend didn't want to marry Liam, and now he was married to a complete stranger. At 12:15 p.m., Liam arrived home and went straight to his room to change clothes. When he came down, he was wearing black dress trousers and a white shirt. A more casual, but still elegant, look. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Nervous," Sarah admitted. "What if they don't like me?" "They will like you, and even if they don't, it doesn't matter. The only one who needs to approve our marriage is my grandfather, and he already has." The guests began to arrive at 12:30 p.m. sharp. First came Gabrielle, Liam's secretary, a woman in her 40s with a professional appearance and a kind smile, and the 2 company partners, middle-aged men who greeted Sarah politely, but without much interest. Then came Liam's cousins, Charles and James, both around 40, with their respective wives. They seemed like friendly people and treated Sarah cordially. Victoria arrived last, accompanied by her husband. She was a tall, blonde, well-dressed woman with an expression Sarah immediately identified as hostile. She would be around 40 and wore expensive jewelry that glittered every time she gestured. "So you're the famous Sarah," Victoria said when Liam introduced them. "What a wonderful surprise to discover my cousin got married without telling anyone in the family." Her tone of voice made it clear that she didn't consider the surprise wonderful at all. "Pleasure to meet you, Victoria," Sarah replied, maintaining her composure. "The pleasure is mine. I'm very curious to meet the woman who managed to lead my cousin to the altar in less than a month of relationship." "Victoria," Liam intervened. "Let's go to lunch." Margaret prepared a special menu. During lunch, Victoria bombarded Sarah with seemingly innocent questions, but clearly designed to make her uncomfortable or expose inconsistencies in her story. "And where exactly did you meet?" Victoria asked while cutting her salmon. "In a bookstore in the city center," Sarah calmly replied. "Liam was looking for a book on business management, and I was buying a copy of Cloud Street to reread." "What an interesting coincidence. Liam detests Cloud Street. He always said it was a boring and outdated book. Sarah looked at Liam, who seemed a little uncomfortable. People can change their minds about literature, she said, especially when they find someone who can show a different perspective on the classics. It's true, Liam quickly agreed. Sarah made me see aspects of the book I had never noticed before. How romantic, Victoria commented with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And I was told you were a university lecturer. Which university did you work at? Sarah felt her stomach clench, but kept her voice firm. At the University of Melbourne, Arts faculty. Interesting. And why did you leave there, Victoria? Liam said with a warning tone. I don't think it's appropriate to interrogate Sarah as if she were giving testimony. It's all good, Sarah said, lightly touching Liam's arm. I had some academic disagreements with colleagues, and I decided it was time to seek new horizons. Academic disagreements, Victoria repeated. How so? Differences of opinion on teaching methodology and research direction. Nothing too dramatic. It was technically true, though a very softened version of the facts. Gabrielle, the secretary, tried to change the subject. Liam told me you're very cultured, Sarah. It must be wonderful to have someone he can talk to about books and art. Yes, it is, Sarah agreed, grateful for the intervention. Liam has an impressive library. I was reading some books from it this morning. What kind of literature do you enjoy most? Charles, one of the cousins, asked. Classic Australian literature mainly, but I also like contemporary authors. Recently, I've become interested in biographies of writers. The conversation flowed more naturally after that, with discussions about books, travels, and plans for the future. Victoria continued to cast distrustful glances at Sarah, but stopped with the direct questioning. After all the guests left, Liam and Sarah sat in the living room, both clearly exhausted. How do you think it went? He asked. Your cousin hates me, Sarah replied directly. Victoria is suspicious of everyone. Don't take it personally. She clearly suspects there's something wrong with our marriage, but she can't prove anything. And even if she could, what would she do? Tell my grandfather? He already approved of us. Liam, I need to ask you something. What? Do you really detest Cloud Street? Liam blushed for the first time since lunch. I detest it. I think it's one of the most boring books I've ever tried to read. Then why did you say you'd changed your mind about it? Because I needed to defend you, and it was the first thing that came to my head. Sarah felt something warm stir in her chest. It had been a long time since anyone had defended her, even in a small situation like that. Thank you, she said softly. You're welcome. We're a team now, remember? At least for the next few months. That night, Sarah lay in her bed, thinking about what had happened during the day. Lunch had been a test, and she felt she had passed, even with Victoria's hostility. But what troubled her most was the growing realization that she was starting to like Liam as a person. It wasn't just gratitude for what he was doing for her. It was genuine fondness, admiration even. And that was dangerous because when those 6 months ended, they would divorce and go their separate ways. She couldn't allow herself to develop real feelings for a man who was married to her only out of convenience. She needed to maintain emotional distance, be grateful, cordial, fulfill her part of the agreement, but not get emotionally involved. It was easier said than done. The next morning, a Tuesday, Liam had left early for an important meeting at the company. Sarah was having breakfast alone when Margaret approached her with a worried expression. Mrs. O'Connell, there's a person here who wants to speak with you. With me? Who? A man who said his name was Dr. Thorne. He said he knows you from the university. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Dr. Richard Thorne, the professor who had destroyed her life. What was he doing here? Where is he? In the sitting room. He said it's urgent. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She couldn't show weakness. Tell him I'll be down shortly. She quickly went up to her room, changed her robe for more appropriate clothes, and went down to confront the man who had taken everything from her. Dr. Richard Thorne was standing by the sitting room window, looking out at the garden. He was a man in his late 50s, graying hair, distinguished appearance. He wore a suit and tie as always. When he saw her enter, he turned with a smile she knew well and had always detested. Sarah, my dear, how are you? Different. What do you want, Richard? What coldness. Won't you even greet me properly? Just speak. What did you come here for? Dr. Thorne sat down uninvited, crossed his legs, and adopted a relaxed posture. I heard you married a rich businessman. Congratulations. I always knew you were clever. How did you know about my marriage? Oh, Sarah, Melbourne isn't that big. News spreads. A whirlwind marriage of an influential businessman to a former university lecturer attracts attention. Sarah remained standing, keeping her distance. You still haven't told me why you came here. I came to make a proposal, An offer of peace, so to speak. What kind of offer? I'm willing to publicly admit that the accusations against you were exaggerated. I can even help clear your name academically. Sarah felt her heart race, but she forced herself to maintain a neutral expression. In exchange for what? A symbolic amount. $5,000, Australian dollars. To cover some inconveniences I'll have to face to correct the situation. Are you trying to blackmail me? I prefer to think of this as a business opportunity. You have access to resources now through your husband. $5,000 is an insignificant amount for a man in his position. Sarah felt rage rise like hot lava. You destroyed my life. You made me lose everything I had, and now you want me to pay you to admit you lied. Let's be practical. Sarah, do you want your name cleared? This is your opportunity. Otherwise, I can assure you that the doors of academia will remain closed to you forever. Get out of my house. Think carefully about my proposal. You have 48 hours to decide. Dr. Thorne got up and walked towards the door but stopped before leaving. Oh, and Sarah, your husband knows about your past, about the accusations. It would be a shame if he discovered he married someone with a questionable reputation. With that, he left, leaving Sarah trembling with rage and fear. She ran to her room and locked herself inside. Her hands were shaking so much that she could barely dial Liam's number on her phone. Sarah, is something wrong? I need to talk to you. It's urgent. I'm in an important meeting. Can it wait until I get home? No, it can't. It's about my past, about the person who harmed me at the university. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please remember to like and especially subscribe to the channel. That helps those of us just starting out a lot. Now continuing. Liam arrived home in 15 minutes, finding Sarah still locked in her room. She opened the door when she heard his voice, and he immediately noticed she was visibly affected. What happened? Dr. Thorne was here, the professor who accused me of plagiarism. Liam guided her to the armchairs by the window and sat opposite her. Tell me everything from the beginning. Sarah recounted the conversation, every word, every veiled threat. Liam listened in silence, but she could see rage growing in his eyes. He's trying to blackmail you, Liam said when she finished. I know, but what if he carries out his threats? What if he tells your grandfather about the accusations? Even if they're false, it could be enough to ruin everything. It won't ruin anything. My grandfather isn't the kind of person who judges someone without knowing the facts. But Dr. Thorne can invent convincing evidence. He's done it before. Liam was silent for a moment, thinking, Sarah, do you trust me? Yes, I think so. Then, let me handle this. I have resources and contacts that can help deal with men like that. What are you going to do? First, I'm going to hire a private investigator to find out everything he can about Dr. Thorne's recent activities. If he's trying to blackmail you now, he's probably done it to other people. And then we're going to expose the truth the right way, with solid evidence that can't be questioned. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. This is going to cost a lot of money. Don't worry about the money. Worry about giving me all the information you have about that man and about what he did to you at the university. Why are you doing this? It goes far beyond our original agreement. Liam stood up and walked to the window, turning his back to her. Because you don't deserve to live in fear of someone who wronged you unfairly, and because I care about what happens to you. There was something in his voice that made Sarah feel he wasn't just speaking as a helpful friend. Liam, don't say anything now, he interrupted her, still with his back turned. Let's focus on resolving this situation first. We'll talk about the rest later. That afternoon, Liam cancelled all his commitments and dedicated himself to making calls and arranging meetings with people who could help. In a few hours, he had hired one of Melbourne's best private investigators and arranged a consultation with a lawyer specializing in academic law. How did you manage to organize all this so quickly? Sarah asked, impressed. When you have resources and know who to talk to, doors open, he replied. Tomorrow morning we'll meet with the investigator. He'll need all the details you remember about what happened. And if Dr. Thorne discovers we're investigating him, even better. Men like him become careless when they're nervous. That night, during dinner, Liam told Sarah about his own experience with blackmail and threats. When I was younger and gradually taking over my grandfather's company, several people tried to extort me. Disgruntled former employees, competitors, even some distant relatives. I learned that the only way to deal with such people is to confront them head-on. And it always worked. Blackmailers are cowards by nature. When they realize you won't be intimidated, they usually back down. But what if Dr. Thorne is different? Then we're going to destroy his credibility once and for all, legally, but definitively. The determination in Liam's voice was comforting, but Sarah still felt a knot in her stomach. She had known Dr. Thorne for years and knew he was cunning and malicious. "Can I ask you a personal question?" she said after a moment. "Of course. Why did you never get married before? I mean for real. Not for the inheritance?" Liam hesitated, playing with his napkin. "Because I never found someone who made me feel it was worth taking the risk." "What risk?" "The risk of opening my heart to someone and then losing that person, as happened with my parents." Sarah understood. It was the same reason she had stayed away from serious relationships for years. "And now, you're taking that risk with me?" Liam looked her in the eyes for the first time in the conversation. "I think I already started, whether I wanted to or not." Sarah felt her heart race. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her realize their dynamic had changed. They were no longer just two strangers fulfilling a business agreement. "Liam, I know. It's complicated. It wasn't what we had planned. We can't get emotionally entangled. When all this is over," he interrupted, "when all this is over, we'll decide what we want to do with what's happening between us." Sarah stayed up late that night, thinking about the conversation. She was in uncharted territory. She had married Liam to solve a practical problem of his and restart her own life. She hadn't planned on getting emotionally involved, but it was too late. She was already involved. The next morning, Liam and Sarah met with the private investigator at a discreet cafe in the city center. Michael Davies was a 50-year-old former police officer with an ordinary appearance that made him unnoticeable in any crowd. "I need all the details about that professor," Michael said, opening a notebook. "Full name, where he works now, what are his habits, who are his friends and contacts." Sarah provided all the information she remembered about Dr. Thorne. Michael took meticulous notes and occasionally asked specific questions. And about the time of the accusation, who else was involved in the process? There was an investigation committee made up of 5 professors. The coordinator was a close friend of Dr. Thorne. Names. Sarah provided the names and all the circumstances she could remember. Michael seemed satisfied with the volume of information. "I'm going to start by investigating Dr. Thorne's current activities," he explained. "If he's trying to blackmail you, it's probably not the first time. Men like that have behavior patterns." "How long will it take?" Liam asked. "For preliminary information, a week. To build a solid case, maybe a month. And if he carries out his threats before then we'll be ready to counterattack immediately." Leaving the meeting, Liam seemed confident, but Sarah was still uneasy. "What if in the end we discover we don't have enough evidence to prove he falsified the accusations? Then at least we'll have enough information to neutralize any future blackmail attempts." "That's not enough for me," Sarah said firmly. "I want the truth to be known. I want my name to be completely cleared." Liam stopped walking and looked at her. "And you will get it, I promise you." There was a conviction in his voice that made Sarah believe, for the first time in months, that it might be possible to reclaim her reputation and her career. During the rest of the week, life in the mansion followed a relatively normal routine. Liam left for work in the morning and returned in the late afternoon. Sarah spent the day reading in the library, chatting with Margaret, and trying not to obsessively think about the ongoing investigation. On the weekend, they received an unexpected invitation. "My grandfather wants to invite us to a special dinner on Saturday night," Liam announced on Friday during breakfast. "There will be more family, some close friends of his. It's quite formal. He wants to introduce you to his social circle. It's a kind of official approval." Sarah felt her stomach churn. The more people who knew their invented story, the greater the risk that someone would discover inconsistencies. "It'll be fine," Liam reassured her as if reading her thoughts. "They're polite people. They'll ask polite questions and accept polite answers." On Saturday night, Sarah dressed carefully for dinner. She chose an elegant but discreet dark blue dress, comfortable low heels, and minimal jewelry. She wanted to make a good impression, without appearing to be trying too hard. Liam's grandfather's house was full of guests when they arrived. About 20 people circulated in the living room with drinks in hand, conversing in small groups. Sarah recognized some faces from the previous lunch, but most were unfamiliar. Robert greeted them warmly. "Sarah, my dear, so good to see you again. You're radiant." "Thank you, Robert. The house is beautiful. Come, I want to introduce you to some special people." In the next 2 hours, Sarah was introduced to businessmen, doctors, lawyers, retired professors, and their respective wives. The conversations were superficial but pleasant, and she managed to relax gradually. It was during dinner that the situation became complicated. She was sitting between Liam and an elegant woman in her 60s named Helen, who casually mentioned, "Sarah, I heard you were a lecturer at the University of Melbourne. What a coincidence. My daughter-in-law also studied arts there. Perhaps you know each other." "It's possible," Sarah replied carefully. "When did she graduate?" "About 3 years ago. Her name is Laura Evans. She always speaks very highly of her professors." Sarah almost choked on her wine. Laura Evans had been one of her brightest students and also one of the first to abandon her when the plagiarism accusations surfaced. "Laura, yes, I remember her," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "How wonderful. I'll tell her I found you. I'm sure she'll be happy to know you're doing well." Sarah exchanged a worried glance with Liam. If Laura knew she had married a rich businessman so soon after living on the streets, she would certainly ask questions. And Laura knew all the details about the accusations at the university. "Actually," Sarah said quickly, "I prefer not to mix my current life with my professional past. I'm in a transition phase, you understand?" "Of course, dear, I understand perfectly." But Sarah noticed that Helen remained curious about her reaction, one more person who would possibly leave there with unanswered questions. After dinner, when they were returning home, Liam asked, "Who is Laura Evans?" Sarah sighed. "An ex-student. One of those who abandoned me when the accusations started. Do you think she could cause problems? If she finds out about our marriage and tells other people at the university, yes, it could be problematic. We'll deal with that if it happens. There's no point in worrying prematurely." But Sarah was already worrying. She felt as if she was walking on a minefield where any false step could blow up her entire new life. On Monday, Michael called with the first information about Dr. Thorne. "Can I come over this afternoon?" he asked. "I have some interesting things to show you." Liam cancelled a meeting to be present when the investigator arrived. Michael brought a folder full of documents and photographs. "Our friend, the professor, has been very busy," he began, spreading papers on the living room table. "I discovered he pulled the same trick on at least 2 other people in the last 3 years." "How so?" Sarah asked. "A lecturer from Deakin University and a researcher from the University of New South Wales. Both were accused of plagiarism under very similar circumstances to yours. And in both cases, Dr. Thorne was involved in the investigation committees." Liam leaned in to examine the documents. "And what happened to those other victims?" "The lecturer from Deakin University managed to prove her innocence after 2 years of legal struggle, but lost the tenured position she was vying for. The researcher from UNSW changed fields completely and now works for a private company." "This proves there's a pattern," Sarah said, feeling a mixture of relief and anger. "Exactly. But there's more. Dr. Thorne has a son who is doing his doctorate at a prestigious university in Sydney. The tuition fees are expensive, and from the financial documents I managed to access, his salary as a professor wouldn't be enough to cover those costs." "Is someone paying him to sabotage other professors?" Liam asked. "It's a possibility. Or is he using blackmail to get extra money? I need to investigate further to be sure." Michael showed some photographs of Dr. Thorne entering and leaving expensive buildings, dining in sophisticated restaurants, driving a car that cost much more than he could afford with his salary. "His lifestyle doesn't match his official income," the investigator observed. "That's always a red flag. What do we do now?" Sarah asked. "Now we're going to talk to the other victims. If we can get them to collaborate, we can build a much stronger case." In the following days, Michael managed to contact the lecturer from Deakin University and the researcher from the University of New South Wales. Both were interested in cooperating when they learned there were other victims. The lecturer from Deakin University, Dr. Eleanor Watson, agreed to meet Sarah at a cafe in Melbourne at the end of the week. "I could never prove it, but I always knew Dr. Thorne had some personal interest in harming me," Eleanor commented during the meeting. "He wanted the position of postgraduate program coordinator that I was contending for." "And did you get the position after proving your innocence?" "No, the position went to one of his protégés. I left the university completely and started working at a private school." "Do you still have documents from your process?" "I have everything saved. I could never get rid of the papers, hoping that one day they could be useful for something." Sarah felt less alone for the first time in months. There were other people who understood exactly what she had been through. The researcher from UNSW, Dr. Robert Davies, shared an even more disturbing story during a video conference. "Dr. Thorne sought me out after my process ended," Robert recounted. "He said he could help me clear my name in exchange for a favor. He wanted me to falsify data for a research project that would benefit a company that was paying him bribes." "And you did it?" Sarah asked. "Of course not, but the threat was clear. If I didn't cooperate, He would make sure I never worked at any university in the country again. Liam participated in all these conversations, taking notes and asking perceptive questions. Sarah was impressed with his ability to quickly grasp the nuances of the situation. "We're dealing with something much more serious than individual blackmail," he observed after the conversation with Robert. "This is systemic corruption." Michael agreed. "And men like Dr. Thorne rarely work alone. There's probably a network of people involved." "What does this mean for me?" Sarah asked. "It means that when we expose this situation, you're not just going to be exonerated, you'll be seen as one of the first victims of a much larger scheme." It was more than Sarah had dared to hope for, not just clearing her name but being publicly recognized as a victim of injustice. But it also meant that the risks were greater. If Dr. Thorne was part of a corruption network, he had resources and connections that could make him more dangerous when he felt threatened. On Thursday of the second week after Dr. Thorne's visit, he reappeared at Liam's mansion. This time he wasn't politely announced by Margaret. He simply appeared at the door when Sarah was home alone. "Time's up, Sarah," he said as soon as she opened the door. "I hope you've thought about my proposal." "Yes, I have," she replied, keeping the door only ajar, "and my answer is no." Dr. Thorne's expression immediately changed. The fake smile disappeared, revealing something darker. "I hope you don't regret that decision." "I won't regret it. We'll see." "Does your dear husband know he's married to an academic fraud, a woman who stole other professors' work? He knows the truth about what you did." "Doctor." Thorne seemed genuinely surprised. "Oh, really? And what exactly do you think you can prove?" "More than you imagine." Sarah closed the door and immediately called Liam. He was home in 10 minutes, along with Michael, who had been called for an emergency meeting. "He's feeling pressured," the investigator observed. "That's good. Pressured people make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" Liam asked. "They'll try to accelerate their schemes. Maybe they'll contact accomplices carelessly, or try to get rid of evidence in a hurry. And if he tries to harm Sarah publicly before we manage to expose him, then we'll be ready to counterattack immediately." Michael had prepared a strategy for that possibility. He had media contacts who could publish the true version of the story if Dr. Thorne tried to spread lies. "But I prefer to avoid a public war," he explained. "It's better to resolve this behind the scenes in a way that forces Dr. Thorne to admit the truth without causing more harm to anyone." "How?" "By confronting him with irrefutable evidence of his other crimes. If he knows he can be arrested or lose everything, he might accept a deal where he confesses about Sarah's case in exchange for not being prosecuted for the other frauds." It was a risky plan, but it seemed to be the best available option. On the weekend, Liam suggested they do something relaxing to take their minds off the stressful situation. "How about we go to the National Gallery of Victoria?" he proposed. "It's beautiful weather, and you seem to need a distraction." Sarah thought it was a good idea. It had been years since she had visited the Contemporary Art Museum in the city center, and she had always enjoyed walking through the gardens and observing the artistic installations. In the car, heading to the NGV, they talked about lighter topics: art, music, places they had visited, books they had read recently. It was comforting to have a normal conversation after weeks focused only on problems and investigations. "Can I ask a question?" Liam said while driving. "Of course. If we manage to resolve all this with Dr. Thorne and clear your name, what do you want to do next?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Go back to teaching is what I've always wanted to do. Teach literature, mentor, research, work with young people interested in learning. In Melbourne, I don't know. Maybe it's better to start in another city, in another state, where no one knows me, and I can have a completely fresh start." Liam was silent for a few moments. "And what about us?" he finally asked. Sarah felt her heart race. It was the question they had both been avoiding asking directly. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "Our situation is very complicated." "Why?" "Because it started as a business agreement. How can I be sure that what I'm feeling is real and not just gratitude or convenience? And me, how can I be sure that you're not here just for the money and security?" They were fair and difficult questions to answer. "Perhaps we'll only find out when we no longer have any practical reason to be together," Sarah said. "Perhaps." At the NGV, they walked through the gardens in comfortable silence, observing the artistic installations and enjoying the fresh air and tranquility of the place. It was the first day in weeks that Sarah had managed to completely relax and not think about the problems that surrounded them. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said when they were sitting on a bench, observing a sculpture. "Thank you for agreeing to come. It's been a long time since I felt so peaceful. Even with all the problems we're facing, especially because of them, You made me realize that there are more important things in life than work and family obligations." Sarah looked at him. The afternoon sun illuminated his blue eyes, and there was an expression of serenity on his face that she rarely saw when they were at home. Like what? True companionship, having someone to share both the difficult and good times with. Feeling like I'm not facing everything alone. She understood perfectly. It was exactly how she felt too. "Liam, I know. It's risky for us to get this close, but I can't help it." Sarah couldn't help it either. With each passing day, she felt more connected to him. It wasn't just physical attraction, although that also existed. It was a deep affinity, a feeling that she had finally found someone who understood her completely. But there was still the issue of the agreement between them and the situation with Dr. Thorne and the uncertainty about the future. On Monday, Michael called with urgent news. "I need to speak with you immediately," he said. "I've discovered something important about Dr. Thorne." They met at the investigator's office in the city center. Michael had a grave expression when he received them. "I arranged this meeting here because I suspect your house might be under surveillance," he explained. "How so?" Liam asked. "Dr. Thorne hired a private investigator to find out everything he can about you, especially about your marriage." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "He suspects our marriage is fake. Not only does he suspect it, he has evidence." Michael opened a folder and showed several photographs. Sarah saw herself in the images, from the days she lived near Federation Square until the moment she first got into Liam's car. How did he get these photos? He's probably been following you for weeks, or perhaps months, perhaps since you left the university. Liam examined the photographs with a somber expression. What does he intend to do with this? Blackmail both of you. If he proves the marriage is fake, he can ruin Liam's reputation and make you lose the inheritance. And as for me? Sarah asked. For you, it would be even worse. You would be seen as a swindler who took advantage of a rich man. That would destroy any chance of you recovering your academic reputation. The situation had become much more serious than any of them had imagined. What options do we have? Liam asked. Few, and all risky. We can try to expose his crimes before he exposes you, or you can consider making the marriage official for real. How so? Sarah asked. If you really fell in love and want to be together, the marriage stops being fake. Dr. Thorne would have nothing more to use against you. Sarah and Liam looked at each other. It was a logical solution, but one that brought enormous emotional implications. We need to think about it, Liam said. We don't have much time, Michael warned. From the information I gathered, Dr. Thorne intends to act in the coming days. On the way back home, Sarah and Liam barely spoke. Both were absorbed in their own thoughts, processing the new reality of the situation. At home, they sat in the library in armchairs facing each other, trying to decide what to do. Michael is right, Liam said finally. If we decide we want to be together for real, Dr. Thorne can't harm us. But what if we're making this decision only out of fear and not out of real love? How can we be sure of what we feel in the midst of all this pressure? Perhaps we can't have absolute certainty. Perhaps we have to trust what we feel now and hope it's real. Sarah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where they had walked together so many times in recent weeks. Liam, can I tell you something? Of course. In recent days, I've imagined what it would be like to continue living here with you. Not for the money or security, but because I feel at home by your side. Liam stood up and walked over to her. I've been thinking about that too. This house has always been very large and silent for me. Since you arrived, it finally feels like a home. They stood side by the window, not touching, but feeling each other's closeness. So, what do we do? Sarah asked. We decide if we want to try to make this work for real, independently of Dr. Thorne, independently of the inheritance, independently of all the practical reasons that brought us here. And what do you want? Liam turned to look at her. I want to try. I want to see if what I'm feeling is real and lasting. I want to give us a chance. Sarah felt her heart race. It was what she also wanted, but she was afraid to admit it. And if it doesn't work, then at least we'll know we tried. It's better than spending the rest of our lives wondering, what if? Sarah took a deep breath and made a decision. All right, let's try. Liam smiled for the first time in days. Really? Truly? He moved closer and gently touched her face. Can I kiss you for real this time? In response, Sarah leaned towards him. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, as if both were still testing the limits of this new dynamic between them. Then it deepened, laden with weeks of repressed tension and feelings they had tried to ignore. When they separated, Liam rested his forehead against hers. So, are we really married now? I think so. How do you feel? Scared? Hopeful? Happy? Me too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please remember to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. That helps those of us just starting out a lot. Now continuing. That night they talked late into the evening about how their new relationship would work. They decided to take things slowly, get to know each other better as a real couple and not as people fulfilling a role. I want to get to know the real Sarah, Liam said. Not the lecturer who lost everything, not the woman who was living on the streets, but who you really are beneath all those circumstances. And I want to get to know the real Liam, she replied. Not just the successful businessman or the dedicated grandson, but the person you are when no one is looking. It was a new beginning for both of them, but they still had to face Dr. Thorne. The next morning, Michael called with a risky proposal. I want to confront Dr. Thorne directly with the evidence we have about his other crimes, he said. If we do it the right way, perhaps we can force him to back down without needing to expose your marriage. How? Liam asked. Arranging a meeting with him, showing him that we know about the lecturer from Deakin University and the researcher from the University of New South Wales, and making it clear that we can ruin his life just as he ruined the lives of other people. It was risky, but it might work. Men like Dr. Thorne only understood the language of force. The meeting was scheduled for late afternoon at a discreet hotel in the city center. Liam insisted on accompanying Sarah and Michael. Dr. Thorne arrived promptly with a confident expression that quickly disappeared when he saw he wasn't just dealing with Sarah. What is this? He asked when they sat down in a private room. A conversation about uncomfortable truths, Michael replied, opening a folder full of documents, specifically about your extra-legal activities over the last 5 years. Dr. Thorne's expression changed completely when he saw photographs, bank statements, and testimonies from other victims spread across the table. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Then let me clarify, Michael said calmly. Dr. Eleanor Watson, Deakin University. Dr. Robert Davies, University of New South Wales. Dr. Sarah Jenkins, University of Melbourne. 3 professors falsely accused of academic plagiarism in situations where you had privileged access to the investigation processes. Dr. Thorne was visibly pale. Now, that doesn't prove anything, doesn't it? And what about the irregular payments you received from companies interested in favoring certain candidates in academic competitions? Or the falsified documents we found in your university office? It was a bluff, but Michael presented it with such conviction that Dr. Thorne believed it. What do you want? We want you to stop harassing Sarah, Liam said, speaking for the first time in the meeting. We want you to publicly admit that the accusations against her were false, and we want you to discreetly retire from academic life before we decide to expose everything we know about you. And if I don't accept, Michael leaned forward, then, tomorrow morning, all universities in the country will receive a detailed report about your activities. The media will also receive copies, and the police will receive evidence of federal crimes related to corruption in higher education institutions. Dr. Thorne remained silent for several minutes, clearly calculating his options. And if I do what you ask, what guarantee is there that you won't pursue me afterwards? Because we have no interest in destroying your life, Sarah replied. We just want you to stop destroying other people's. I need time to think. You have 24 hours, Michael said. Tomorrow at the same time, we want your answer. Dr. Thorne left the meeting clearly affected. Michael was sure he would accept the agreement. Men like him are fundamentally cowards, he explained. When they realize they can lose everything, they always choose to save what they can. But Sarah wasn't so optimistic. What if he decides to harm us before backing down? He still has those photographs of our wedding. Then we'll be ready to counterattack immediately, Liam replied. We have enough evidence to destroy his credibility faster than he can destroy ours. That night, Sarah and Liam had dinner at home, trying to maintain normality despite the tension. They talked about plans for the future, assuming everything would go well with Dr. Thorne. When all this is over, Liam said, I'd like to get to know your academic field better. Perhaps you could teach me about Australian literature, for real this time, not just to pretend in front of my family. Do you really want to learn, or are you just trying to impress me? I want to learn. I want to understand the things that are important to you, Sarah smiled. It was one of the things she most appreciated in Liam, his genuine willingness to grow and learn. And I'd like to understand your business better, she said. I've always been interested in how family businesses work, especially those that have passed through several generations. Our company has an interesting history. My great-grandfather started with a small hardware store, and each generation expanded it into new areas. And what do you want to add to the family legacy? Liam thought for a moment. social projects, education for disadvantaged communities, using the company's resources to make a difference in people's lives. Sarah was impressed. It was a noble vision, and very different from the stereotype of the greedy businessman. Is that why it matters so much to you to receive the inheritance, so you can implement those projects? In part, yes, also because it's a family legacy I don't want to lose. But mainly, yes, for the social projects. It was one more reason for Sarah to admire him. Liam wasn't fighting just for money or status, but for an opportunity to do good. The next morning, Michael called early. Dr. Thorne accepted our conditions, he announced. He's going to sign a confession admitting he falsified the evidence against you, Sarah, and he's going to retire early from the university. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. How so? He just accepted. We discovered more things about him overnight, evidence that he was involved in even worse schemes than we thought. When we presented it to him this morning, he realized he had no choice. What kind of evidence? I prefer not to go into details over the phone. Come to my office this afternoon, and I'll explain everything personally. At Michael's office, they discovered the full extent of Dr. Thorne's crimes. In addition to sabotaging academic careers, he had been involved in fraud in university tenders, illegal sales of places in postgraduate courses, and even money laundering schemes. It's much bigger than any of us imagined, Michael explained. When I showed him we had evidence of these activities, he was desperate to reach an agreement. And the confession about your case is already signed and notarized. You are officially exonerated, Sarah. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. After so many months of humiliation and hopelessness, she finally had her reputation back. Thank you, she whispered to Michael. Thank you for not giving up. And thank you too, she said to Liam, taking his hand, for believing in me and providing the resources to uncover the truth. You don't have to thank me, he replied, squeezing her hand. We did it together. In the following days, Dr. Thorne's confession quickly spread through academic circles. The university issued an official statement exonerating Sarah and apologizing for the treatment she had received. Other universities began to contact her, offering her positions. How do you feel? Liam asked one night as they celebrated at home with a bottle of champagne. Free, Sarah replied. For the first time in over a year, I feel completely free. And what do you want to do with that freedom? Sarah thought carefully before answering. I want to go back to teaching, but here in Melbourne, if you agree, I want to stay close to you. Are you sure? Don't you want a new beginning somewhere else? My new beginning is here with you. Liam smiled and kissed her gently. And what about our original agreement? The 6 months? The divorce? I think we can break that contract, don't you think? Definitely. 6 months later, Sarah was back in the classrooms, this time as a senior lecturer at Deakin University in Melbourne. Her students adored her, her colleagues respected her, and she finally felt she was where she was supposed to be. Liam had implemented his social projects, including a scholarship program for disadvantaged students who wanted to pursue an academic career. Sarah helped him select the beneficiaries, ensuring that talented young people had opportunities that they themselves had almost lost. Robert, Liam's grandfather, had become one of Sarah's biggest advocates. He frequently told anyone who would listen that his grandson had chosen an exceptional woman. She has grit, he used to say. She went through difficulties that would break many people, but she came out stronger. Victoria, surprisingly, also came to respect Sarah after hearing the whole story. She even apologized for her initial hostility. I thought you were just another gold digger after the family money, she admitted during a family lunch. I didn't know you had been through all that. One night, while they were in the library reading together, Liam asked a question that had been on both their minds for weeks. Sarah, do you regret anything about how everything happened between us? She closed the book and looked at him. Nothing important. And you? Me neither. Although our beginning was unconventional, perhaps it was exactly how it was meant to be. If we had met under normal circumstances, perhaps we would never have connected so deeply. How so? Because when we met, we were both at vulnerable points in our lives. You with the pressure of the inheritance, me with my desperate situation. That forced us to be completely honest with each other from the beginning. Liam nodded. In conventional relationships, people often hid their problems and insecurities until much later in the relationship. They had had to face difficulties together from day one. Can I ask you something? Sarah said. Always. When did you know you were falling in love with me? For real, not just fulfilling our agreement. Liam thought carefully. It was when you confronted Dr. Thorne that first time he appeared here. I saw the courage you had to stand up to him, even when you were afraid. At that moment, I realized you were much stronger than any circumstance you faced. And you, when did you know? When you defended me at lunch with your family, even knowing you detested Cloud Street, she replied, laughing. I saw that you were willing to protect me, even when you weren't obliged to. They smiled, remembering that moment that now seemed to have happened a long time ago. 2 years later, Sarah was pregnant with their first child. The pregnancy had been planned, and both were excited about the prospect of starting a real family. How will we explain to our children how we met? Liam asked one night, his hands resting on Sarah's belly. We'll tell them the truth, she replied, that sometimes the best things in life happen in the most unexpected ways. And if they ask why you were living on the street, we'll teach them about injustice, about how sometimes bad people harm good people, and about how important it is to fight for the truth, even when it seems impossible, and about how you agreed to marry a stranger. Sarah smiled. We'll say that sometimes you have to take a risk to find happiness, and that your father was very persuasive. Liam laughed and kissed her forehead. I'm grateful every day that you took that risk. Me too. 3 years after their first meeting in Federation Square, Sarah published a book about her experience, Reconstruction, a story of injustice, love, and second chances. It became a bestseller and was used in academic ethics courses at several universities. In the dedication, she wrote, To Liam, who taught me that happy endings are possible when you find someone willing to fight by your side, and to all who face injustice, never give up on the truth. The royalties were donated to a fund that helped academics facing unjust persecution. It was a way to ensure that other people in similar situations had resources to fight for their reputations. Dr. Thorne, for his part, completely disappeared from academia. Rumors said he had moved to a regional town and was working in a family business away from universities. None of his victims ever sought him out for confrontation or revenge. The truth had been enough. Michael Davies continued working as a private investigator, but began to specialize in cases of academic corruption. He said Sarah's case had opened his eyes to a much broader problem in the Australian university system. One day, 5 years after that first encounter in the square, Sarah and Liam took their 2-year-old son to play in the same park where it had all begun. The boy ran between the benches, laughing and playing, completely oblivious to the dramatic story that had unfolded there years before. Do you remember how you felt that day? Liam asked, pointing to the bench where he had found her looking for food. I remember, Sarah said, watching their child play. I felt lost, hopeless, as if my life had ended. And now I know that sometimes life needs to end completely to be able to start anew in the right way. Liam hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Thank you for accepting my crazy proposal that day. Thank you for making the proposal. Even if it was selfish of me, I was only thinking about solving my inheritance problem. But you didn't know you were saving me too. Sometimes we do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and sometimes the right people find each other at the most improbable moments. They stood there watching their son play in the park, thinking of all the impossible coincidences that had led them to that moment. If Sarah hadn't lost everything, if Liam hadn't had the pressure of the inheritance, if Dr. Thorne hadn't been so ambitious, if Michael hadn't been so competent, any change in that chain of events could have resulted in a completely different ending, but all those things had happened exactly as they needed to happen for them to find each other. Do you believe in destiny? Sarah asked. I believe in choices, Liam replied. I believe that destiny can put opportunities in our path, but it's up to us to decide if we're going to take them. And do you think we took our opportunity well? Liam looked at his son, his wife, the life they had built together from an absurd proposal in a city square in Melbourne. I think we took it perfectly. That night, as they put their son to sleep, Sarah found an old letter in a drawer. It was the first version of the contract Liam had drafted for their original agreement. 6 months of fake marriage in exchange for $100,000 Australian dollars. She showed the paper to Liam. Look what I found. He laughed, seeing his own handwriting scribbling clauses about no physical intimacy and automatic divorce after the agreed period. I should have asked a lawyer to draft this properly, he commented. Why? Because this contract has several loopholes that either of us could use to break the agreement. Like what? Like here, where it says the marriage would only be hanged. It doesn't specify what would happen if one of us truly fell in love. Sarah smiled. A very convenient contractual flaw. Extremely convenient. She tore the paper into small pieces. Now there's no evidence that our marriage started as a business agreement. You're destroying important historical evidence. I'm creating space for our true story. Liam kissed her gently. What is our true story? The story of two people who met at the right moment, in the right way, and decided to build a life together based on love, respect, and mutual understanding. I like that version better. Me too. Years later, when they told their story to friends or family, they never mentioned the details of the original agreement. They told of a chance encounter in a square, of a slightly atypical love at first sight, and of how they had decided to marry quickly because they knew it was the right thing to do. Technically, they weren't lies. They were just simplified versions of a much more complex truth. Sometimes the deepest truth isn't in the specific details of how something happened, but in what resulted from those events. And what resulted from the impossible encounter between a desperate businessman and a despairing teacher was a happy family, rebuilt careers, transformed lives, and proof that second chances can lead to even better endings than the first. 10 years later, when Liam and Sarah renewed their vows in an intimate ceremony with family and close friends, Robert made a toast that perfectly summarized their journey. To my grandson Liam and my granddaughter Sarah, who taught us that true love can be born from the most improbable circumstances, grow in the most difficult conditions, and flourish more beautifully than any fairy tale. You demonstrated that when two people are willing to fight together for truth, for justice, and for love, there is no obstacle they cannot overcome. All the guests applauded, but for Sarah and Liam, the most important words were those that didn't need to be said aloud, that they had found in each other not just romantic partners, but true partners for life. And as they left that celebration hand in hand under the Melbourne stars, both knew that their story was just beginning, because the best happy endings are not those where everything ends perfectly, but those where everything starts anew even better. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of Sarah and Liam's journey? Do you believe that true love can be born from the most unexpected situations? Have you ever faced moments in your life where everything seemed lost, but you ended up discovering that it was just the beginning of something better? Share your experiences in the comments. Stories like these remind us that it's never too late to start over, and that sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as challenges. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that show life always holds wonderful surprises for those who have the courage to believe in second chances.